Good afternoon. A couple of things to take care of. First of all, everyone, please check your phones, make sure they're on silence. I've done that. Secondly, this is a memorial service. We ask that you not applaud at any time during the service. Rather, you should think about the 20,000 to 30,000 Jews who fought against the Nazis. Think about how much strength and guts they had. You are about to hear the Yom HaShoah siren. In Israel, exactly at 10 o'clock a.m. on Holocaust Remembrance Day, every citizen stops what they are doing. Motorists stop their cars in the middle of the road and stand beside the vehicle. A 2-minute siren sounds throughout the country. People stand still. They stand in respect of lives lost. They stand to honor those who died in the Shoah. They stand as a tribute to the survivors. They stand in tribute to the resistance heroes who fought back. They stand in tribute to those who risked their lives to hide, rescue, and liberate Jews. They stand to remind us to stand. They stand. We stand. Please rise. Please be seated. My name is Steve Koppel. I am a second-generation son of survivors Werner and Trudy Koppel. You are about to hear the partisan song, Sag nicht kein Mal, which translates to Never Say. It is perhaps the best known of the Yiddish songs created during the Holocaust. Considered one of the chief anthems of Holocaust survivors, it is sung in memorial services around the world. The song was written by the young poet Herschel Glick, an inmate of the Wilno ghetto, and was based on a pre-existing melody by the Russian Jewish composer Dmitri Prokofiev. The song was adopted as the official anthem of the Wilno Partisans shortly after it was composed in 1943. Jewish partisan fighters from the Warsaw Ghetto, Malabuki Forest, Minsk Ghetto, and Lodz Ghetto sang this song to fortify their courage, reinforce their Jewish identity, and maintain camaraderie in an environment where heroics was required and death all too commonplace. Glick was inspired to write this song by the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. He was captured trying to escape the Wilno Ghetto and was executed in a concentration camp near Riga. His song, to this day, still resonates to the Jewish people. Zognik Kain Mol urges the Jewish people to continue fighting for their survival, transmitting the idea of resistance to the younger generation. The partisan song is a link to the long tradition of Jewish poetry dedicated to maintaining unity against hostile outside forces. Yet the song is powerful and defiantly optimistic. The last line is, "Our step beats out the message, we are here." This song was intended to be sung from generation to generation, proudly in public at any gathering of Jews. Like any anthem, this song is to be sung and listened to while standing. Please, no applause, and join me in standing for Zognit Kain Mol.
You may be seated. Good afternoon. My name is Jackie Congedo, and I have the privilege of serving as the CEO of the Nancy and David Wolf Holocaust and Humanities Center here at Union Terminal. We gather here this afternoon for our annual Yom HaShoah commemoration, united in remembrance, reflection, and community in partnership with the Mayerson JCC, Jewish Family Services, and this year with our partners at the Cincinnati Museum Center. On this day, we honor the 6 million Jewish men, women, and children who were murdered during the Holocaust. We remember not only the magnitude of that loss, but the individual lives within it. Each life was filled with meaning, with relationships, with identity. Each person had a name, a family, and a story. And with each life lost, an entire world was lost. Generations that would never be born, contributions that would never be made, and futures that were never realized. We also today honor the survivors, those who endured unimaginable loss and suffering, and who in the face of devastation rebuilt their life with such courage and humanity. Their courage, their resilience, and their willingness to share their stories have shaped our understanding of this history and ensured that it is not forgotten. We are especially honored to have survivors with us today. Your presence, each of you, is a gift, and we are deeply grateful to bear witness and remember alongside you. Yom HaShoah calls us to remember with solemnity and with intention. It asks us to bear witness to the depth of this loss and to ensure that those who were murdered are not reduced to a number, but are remembered for the lives they lived and the humanity that they carried. As we gather here at Union Terminal, we are reminded that this history is not distant. It is part of our shared responsibility. In remembering, we affirm that their lives matter still, and that their memory calls upon us to live with greater awareness, compassion, and purpose. In this way, the memory of the 6 million and the legacy carried forward by survivors becomes a blessing, guiding us in how we remember and how we move forward together. And now it is my honor to invite Rabbi Sammy Cantor to offer the invocation. Rabbi Cantor.
Thank you to Jackie and Trinity and your entire team for the privilege to be with you here today. We gather this afternoon and in this season carrying the sacred responsibility of memory. The Jewish people are often called a people of memory. In the Torah, we are commanded to remember more than 150 times, demanding that we examine our past to understand what it means to be a Jew today. And we're just emerging from the Passover table a week and a half ago, where we retold our exodus from Egypt to remember our people's journey from slavery to freedom. And now, Yom HaShoah, a time where we carve out space for a different sort of collective memory. A memory of a time not long ago, and a memory that asks us to grapple with the horror and the unimaginable tragedy to make meaning of it for our lives today. This time of year always reminds me of when I had the opportunity to bear witness to the Shoah on March of the Living in Poland in 2005. I'll never forget walking under the gates of Auschwitz, standing in the gas chambers of Majdanek, and seeing how close bystanders continued to live life alongside the horror. I will never forget the feeling of chanting Am Yisrael Chai, the Jewish people live on those blood-stained grounds, as an act of resistance and hope to what happened there. And on that journey, I made a promise to myself to never forget what happened. And I committed to do what I can to ensure others do not forget either. That promise has shaped my life in countless ways, inspiring my work as a rabbi and a Jew, pushing me to help build the world as we dream it could be. And now we all know this work of turning memory into change and meaning is now more important than ever. Our hearts break for the places in our world, in our country, where the lessons of the Shoah are being lost and the memory of the Holocaust is even being questioned. And yet I still see hope. I see it in the long lines to get into the Auschwitz exhibit downstairs. And I see it in the countless educators I've met who've learned through HHC programs and in turn taught their students with renewed methodology. And I see it in rooms like this, when we've come together on a beautiful spring day to be with one another in the sacred responsibility of memory. O Holy One, source of life and memory, bless all who came here today with the space to remember and mourn and cry. May we be strengthened by one another, knowing that we do not carry this weight alone. And may a spark be created in this room to inspire us to go out into the world and make sure others remember our power to build a just and loving society. And let us say together, Amen.
Ona Pentas Alexander was born July 14, 1892, in Aachen, Germany. She grew up in a lively home with 6 siblings. In 1929, Ona married Arnold Alexander, a successful department store owner who ran his business, Alexander Brothers, with his brother, Alex. On November 10, 1938, Alexander Brothers department store was destroyed. Jewish men, including Arnold and Alex, were imprisoned until the Jewish community paid ransom. Arnold was held in prison for 3 weeks. In 1940, Arnold and Erna moved to Brussels, Belgium, where they hid in an attic. Arnold was captured on October 10, 1942, sent to concentration camp of Malins, and from there to Auschwitz, where he died. Erna survived the rest of the war in hiding. After the war, she immigrated to New York, joining her daughter Lottie, who had came before her. Erna learned English, worked as a baby nurse, and became a U.S. citizen. She died in 1962.
Pasha Sukhareva was born in Chernihiv, Ukraine, and was about 3 years old when World War II began. She grew up in a large family of 7 children. Her father, Avraham, was sent to the front in the early days of the war, and the family was evacuated to Astrakhan, Russia. They were transported in livestock rail cars, narrowly surviving the journey. During the evacuation, the family lived in a barracks and endured severe hunger. Pasha's mother, Razia, traded her valuables in order to keep the family alive. One of Pasha's sisters went to fight at the age of 19, and 2 of her brothers were also drafted. The family returned home in 1945, but their house was occupied and they were forced to live in a military tent in their yard. Through it all, they were grateful that all the siblings had survived the war. After returning home, Pasha began school and focused on rebuilding her life. She married her husband Nikolay in 1960 and had 2 children, a son and a daughter, and today she has 3 grandchildren, 3 great-grandchildren, and family both in Russia and the United States.
Emil Edward Herman, my grandfather, was born in Warsaw, Poland in 1931. His father, Paul Pinhas, escaped to eastern Poland, joining the Polish army. Ed, his mother, Sarah Alice, and his sister, Anya, were eventually forced into the Warsaw Ghetto. In 1942, Sarah arranged for Ed to be smuggled out of Poland. The men who smuggled him abandoned Ed at a coffee shop in Budapest, Hungary. He lived on the streets until an orphanage was established for Jewish Polish children in 1943.
In 1944, my grandfather Ed's aunt retrieved him from the orphanage and cared for him until he was reunited with Sarah and Honey after the war. Eventually, they learned Paul had survived and resettled in Israel, where they joined him in 1949. Ed left Israel to attend college in Montreal, Canada, where he met his wife, my grandma Helena. Helena was born in Warsaw, Poland in 1939.
When my grandma was 2 years old, her father, Jacob, was arrested. Helena's mother, Pola, obtained false identification papers, passing as a Christian, while Helena was hidden with a Catholic family. After the war, Helena reunited with her mother. They learned Jacob died en route to Auschwitz. They left Poland in 1949, eventually immigrating to Montreal, Canada, where Helena studied dentistry. She married fellow survivor Ed Herman in 1961. They emigrated to Cincinnati in 1966 and had 2 children. Ed was a highly respected economics professor at the University of Cincinnati for more than 40 years, and Helena, at the age of 45, went back to school and became a clinical psychologist.
Raisa Pustinsky was born in Kiev and was 6.5 years old when the war began. She remembered bombing started right away and she hid behind a sofa for protection. In 1941, the family was evacuated from Kiev. Raisa's father, Lazar, was a soldier in the Soviet army, and during the evacuation, they were supposed to reunited with his military unit in Kharkiv. By the time they arrived, the city had been occupied by German forces. Together with many other families, they hid in a forest nearby Kharkiv when shelling continued. They stayed in bomb shelter. Eventually, they joined a military unit and traveled by train to Russia and then to Central Asia, where they stayed until 1944. Returning to Kiev at the end of the May 1944, things were still dangerous and bombing were commonplace. By war's end, no one on her mother Esther's side of the family had survived. Miraculously, Lazar had survived and they were reunited with him in 1942. After the war, Raisa went to school, but due to the ongoing anti-Semitism, was unable to attend university. She moved a different city where she was able to enroll in university, successfully graduate and receive degree as a teacher of Russian language and literature. In 1958, she married Boris, and the couple had one daughter, Marina. After the perestroika, in 1999, the family emigrated to the United States.
Zahava Rendler was born Golda Furberg in Stry, Poland, just before the Nazi invasion. A Polish neighbor named Staszek hid her parents Gretel and Mendel, and about 30 other people in an underground bunker, bringing them food once a week. Zahava was only a baby, and the bunker had to remain quiet, so the adults would give Zahava sleeping pills to muffle her cries. After hiding there for about a year, Zahava's parents gave her to a Polish woman working with the resistance, who placed her in the care of a Catholic family. When it became too dangerous to hide her in their home, she was sent to a nearby convent. At the end of the war, her parents, having also survived in hiding, were eventually able to retrieve her at the convent. Zahava and her family attempted to illegally enter British Mandate Palestine, but were caught by the British and detained on the island of Cyprus. Eventually, the family was allowed to settle in Haifa. In Israel, she met her husband Samuel, and the two married in 1959. Together, they had 2 children and ultimately settled in Cincinnati in 1963.
Sofia Kobylansky was born on March 30th, 1938 in Kyiv, Ukraine. Her mother, Polina, was a bookkeeper, and her father, Gilya, was a factory worker. At the beginning of the war, Gilya sent Polina and Sofia to Kazakhstan for safety, while he stayed behind to defend the country. He was among the last groups to leave Kyiv. After the war, the family reunited, and Sofia's mother returned to work as a bookkeeper, and her father resumed factory work. Sofia grew up in difficult post-war years, but went to school, graduating from college in 1958. In 1959, she met Mark, and the two married in 1960. They had 2 children, Valerie and Lucy. Eventually, they made the life-changing decision to move to the United States. Adjusting to a new culture, country, and language was not easy. Though challenging, they had each other and held on to resilience and perspective. Sofia's father would always say, "We survive famine, we will survive abundance too."
please join me? We dedicate this pledge to all who were murdered and to all who suffered and survived. We vow to tell your story, as well as the stories of all others who have no one else to remember them. We promise to stand up against prejudice and injustice and to use the lessons of the Holocaust to make the world better for future generations. We will forever keep the memories of the 6 million murdered in our hearts and never let the world forget.
Will everyone please rise? El mole rachamim, shochen bamromim, hamatzei menu chanachona, tachat kanfei hashechina, memalo kedoshim, kedoshim utehorim, kezohar harakia, merim umazehirim, et nishmod acheinu ben Israel, asher nisrafu v'nehegu v'nechneku b'Auschwitz, Majdanek, Treblinka, Dachau, Usheor machnot ha'eshmeid, al yeder garmanim achzarim v'rotzchim b'Yosreihem b'Arzot Europa tachat memshelet Germania Nazit. Anna Behal rachamim astireim b'seter kenevechal olamim. Bitzror achayim et nishmotam. Adonai hu nachalatam. V'anocho b'shalom al mishkavam. V'nomar Amen. Please join me. Yiskadal v'yiskadash shemei rabbah. V'almad v'rach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. V'agal v'zman kariv v'yimru Amen. Yehei shmei rabbah v'varach le'olam u'lomayimei olmaya. Yisbarach v'yishtabach v'yisboar v'yisroman v'yitnaseh. V'yisadar v'yisadlev v'yisalal shmei d'kudusha v'richu. Le'elon min kol b'chata v'shirata, tush b'chata b'nechemata, da'amiran b'olma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim, aleinu v'yal ko Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'yal ko Yisrael v'imru Amen.
We'll be concluding today's program with the ceremonial aspects of the program with singing of Hatikva. most famously known as the national anthem of Israel, the Jewish state. To be sure, connections between the Shoah and the founding of Israel exist. After the Shoah, our collective Jewish consciousness saw even more urgently than in the past the need for a Jewish state, for a Jewish homeland, and the world's sympathies after the Holocaust certainly played some role in the UN's approval of a Jewish state. Indeed, it could be said that without a Holocaust, there would have been no Israel. However, when we think about the enormity of the Shoah, as we do today, we dare not presume the role of accountants on behalf of the Jewish people. We can't declare the Jewish state as compensation for the horrors that our people experienced. Compensation, no, but consolation, yes. As I'm sure many of you know, Hatikva is actually something more than Israel's national anthem. It's something that more deeply connects to what we've done here today. Originally, it's a longer poem by Naftali Tzvi Imber. Hatikva's basic message is that as long as we remember, as long as we connect ourselves to our identities contained so much in our past, then we won't lose hope. Just a bit over a week ago, on the Shabbos that coincided with Pesach, we read from the prophet Ezekiel, and in the course of his bitter exile's first stages, God shows Yechezkel a pile of dry bones, representative of darkness and despair. Not only corpse bones, but dry bones, without the slightest trace of life on them. And that's certainly an image, for myself at least, which gets me thinking of the Shoah, of crematoria, of very dry bones. And with that image, God informs Yechezkel that Beit Yisrael, the Jewish people, unfortunately at that moment, they were saying, Yavshu atzmotenu, our bones have dried, and, a phrase that might sound familiar, Avda tikvatenu. They were saying, our hope is lost. And God then instructs Yechezkel to tell his people that they need to stay strong. Despite how bleak things may seem, those bones will be the source one day of new life. Historically, Hatikva is a song of the Shoah, just as much as it is the song of Israel. Jews sung it in camps in their darkest moments, declaring that Yechezkel, we got your message loud and clear. As long as we remember, lo avda tikvatenu, our hope is not lost. And indeed, that has been the case. Almighty God, we've been privileged to see those dry bones against all odds take form into something more. Yehi ratzon melefanecha, may it be your will, that as we continue to remember, we merit to see our tikvah, our hope, our peoplehood continue to blossom.
We invite everyone to join us with a tikvah.
You may be seated. In this moment of remembrance, we honor the 6 million Jewish men, women, and children who were murdered during the Holocaust and reflect on the weight of that loss. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for commemorating and remembering with us this afternoon. Each year, as many of you know and join us for, we typically gather for Yom HaShoah at the Marison JCC, a place that has long grounded this community in reflection. But this year, we come together here at Union Terminal because of the significance of this moment as we mark this important year and the closing of an exhibition that has brought so many into deeper understanding. This past January marked the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, and at that time we announced that Union Terminal would host the international exhibition entitled Auschwitz Not Long Ago, Not Far Away, and it has been an incredible privilege and responsibility to partner with the Cincinnati Museum Center, Elizabeth Pierce and her remarkable team to bring this learning opportunity to our community. After a 6-month run that welcomed more than 150,000 people, the exhibition closes today. To gather here in this space holds meaning, profound meaning. Union Terminal is not only a landmark in our city, but part of a much larger story. For some survivors, train stations like this were places of arrival after unimaginable loss, the first step in a long journey toward rebuilding their lives. To stand here today is to be connected in a very real way to that history. Over these past months, thousands across our region have come through this exhibition, engaging with Holocaust history in powerful and personal ways. Earlier today, I spent some more time in the exhibition, and what I witnessed, as many of you have, is pretty remarkable. Hundreds of people moving through the space, packed, yet completely silent, except for the occasional sniffle or quiet sob. People deeply engaged in reflection and learning. It was a powerful reminder that this is what meaningful remembrance can look like. It's been a truly significant and meaningful year for Holocaust education in our community, reaching more people than ever before. I want to take a moment just to extend some thanks to the people who made this possible. First, I'd like to acknowledge all who made our incredible commemoration this afternoon happen, including our staff and our commemorations committee, chaired by Barb Miller and also Trinity Johnson on the staff side. A beautiful commemoration, and we're truly grateful to all of you who helped to make this possible and put it together. And of course, to all who participated in our commemoration, we are deeply grateful to each of you. I also want to acknowledge some people who, without their support, the incredible exhibition that we've been able to host here at Union Terminal would not have been possible. To our Community Activation Council, especially Rhonda Shakely and Gary Zola, for your leadership. To our volunteers, many of whom are descendants of survivors or even survivors themselves, who helped us welcome a record-breaking 25,000 students through combined experiences of this exhibition and our museum. Many of you guided students through these spaces, sharing your own family stories and ensuring that this history was personal and real for each student. We simply could not have done this without your extraordinary commitment. Volunteers, so many of them, too many to name, but ones like Hank Schneider, who stood outside the exhibition engaging hundreds of visitors in conversation, represent the very best of our work. To our staff, whose efforts made this year truly unprecedented, and I know I'm going to miss someone, but Corey Silbernagel and our collections team for the meaningful integration of local stories and artifacts in the exhibition itself, to Kara Driscoll and her team for ensuring that this exhibition reached as many people as possible, to Lauren Karish, Trinity Johnson, Caitlin Cesney, John Brunn, and our entire education and museum experience team for the incredible work with schools and students. This has been an extraordinary lift across our organization, and we are so deeply grateful for all you have done to help us make this possible. We are also forever in debt and grateful to our partners at the Cincinnati Museum Center and their entire team for their partnership in helping to bring this to our community. As the exhibition concludes its time in Cincinnati, the responsibility it carries, of course, does not end. The call to remember, to educate, and to act continues. It lives on through our work and in each of us, in how we carry these stories forward. Because of the importance of this day, we are privileged to welcome a distinguished speaker whose life's work has helped shape Holocaust remembrance and justice. Ambassador Stuart Eisenstadt is an American diplomat, attorney, and author. He served as United States Ambassador to the European Union and later as Deputy Secretary to the Treasury. During the Clinton administration, he was appointed Special Representative on Holocaust-era issues, where he led historic efforts with European governments to secure restitution for victims, including compensation for slave and forced laborers and the recovery of looted assets. Ambassador Eisenstadt is the author of the award-winning book Imperfect Justice: Looted Assets, Slave Labor, and the Unfinished Business of World War II, and continues his work today as a leader in international law and policy. Please join me in welcoming Ambassador Stuart Eisenstadt.
Thank you very much, Jackie, and thanks for your leadership of the fantastic Holocaust and Humanities Center. I want to especially say to all the survivors who are here that you are our inspiration, and we will never forget your sacrifice and that of your families. I want to especially thank my dear friend, Dr. Gary Zola, a leader of your Jewish community, the Jewish community in the United States and around the world, and my colleague on the Holocaust Museum Council, which I've had the privilege of chairing for 4 years. Elizabeth Pierce took me through the Auschwitz exhibit, and I had seen it in New York, but frankly it had even more meaning here. It's beautifully rendered and incredibly moving. And looking at the people coming through, everyday Cincinnatians, and the attention with which they honored the exhibits there was incredibly moving, as was this event today. I want to discuss the Holocaust, past, present, and future, as well as anti-Semitism. I've made Holocaust justice for survivors and memory for its 6 million victims a central part of my life. Let's look first at the past, the anti-Semitism that led to the Holocaust. The Holocaust did not occur out of thin air. It was the culmination of the worst manifestations of anti-Semitism and racism, born of a Nazi ideology which targeted Jews as an inferior race. Anti-Semitism, however, didn't begin either with the Nazis. It's been a part of world history for over 2,000 years. It requires constant vigilance. Jews have been accused of orchestrating terrible events during world history. The Black Plague in the 14th century, the Crusaders seeking to liberate, as they put it, the Holy Land from Muslims and Jews. And in the 20th century, in 1903, the publication of the most damning and damaging book, and that is the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, written at the instance of the Russian Tsar, accusing Jews of controlling societal institutions and indeed the whole global world. Hitler and his henchmen latched on to this book, the Protocols, and used it as part of their propaganda. You may have seen posters that showed during the Nazi era, Jews stabbing Germans in the back during World War I, as if Jews were responsible for Germany's loss. Quite the contrary, Jews fought valiantly for Germany during World War I. These dangers are even more rampant in the 21st century, with the dominant form of online Jewish hatred in social media. During the 1920s and 30s, the protocols of Zion played an important part in Nazi propaganda. German schools used them to indoctrinate their young students. The Nazis effectively used the latest technology, the radio, to spread their message of hatred, the equivalent of our cell phones today. You can easily find to this very day, 2026, the protocols in the Arab world embedded in Hamas's own charter and in China, which is a driving force of online anti-Semitism. The magic of your Auschwitz exhibit makes us ask, how was it that the most cultured, educated country at the time, Germany, could suddenly have turned neighbor against neighbor? How was it possible that German doctors and lawyers, judges and academics abandoned their ethical standards to follow Adolf Hitler down the abyss? More than half of the German doctors during World War II were members of the Nazi Party. Lawyers and judges all pledged allegiance to Hitler as the ultimate authority of law, totally undermining the rule of law which had guided Germany before. Now, I want to leave one message with you if you will take anything away from my talk. And that is that there was nothing inevitable about the Holocaust. It was facilitated by the indifference of the world to the fate of European Jewry. And the result, in 1939, there were 17 million Jews in a world of 1 billion. Today, there are 15 million Jews in a world of 8 billion. But the impact of the Holocaust can't just be measured in numbers. And that's, again, what's so moving about your Auschwitz exhibit. It was the destruction of the flower of Jewish culture, of Jewish art, of science, of scholarship, of religion. Hitler's original goal was not the extermination of the Jews. It was not the extermination of the Jews. His original goal was to make Germany Judenrein, free of Jews, to get them out. He proceeded methodically, step by step, gauging German and world reaction to his gradual disenfranchisement of German Jews in the hope that they would leave and have a place to go. He even said once, "I'll put them on a luxury liner to get them out of here." And what did Hitler see as he methodically proceeded? No boycott of the 1936 Olympic Games, even though the 1935 Nuremberg laws disenfranchising Jews had already passed. If there was a pivotal year, it was 1938, when Hitler got a clear signal of the world's indifference to the fate of Jews. In 1938, we had the Anschluss with Austria, the combination of Austria into Germany. The Avian Conference, called by President Roosevelt to deal with the plight of German Jewish refugees, and where the United States and other Western democracies refused to lift their rigid immigration quotas. That same year, the annexation of the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia through the infamous Munich Pact. And then, as we've seen here and in this exhibit today, Kristallnacht, a furious pogrom with mass arrests, the torching of 7,500 German Jewish businesses and 1,000 synagogues. Now, this led the British to institute the Kindertransport. But Hitler paid particularly close attention to the reaction of the United States government. When asked if he had anything to say about the violence that the world saw in Kristallnacht, FDR said, "No, I think not. It'll be handled by the State Department." He opposed a bill in Congress that would have raised immigration quotas and allowed in 10,000 German Jewish children. German propaganda capitalized on this indifference. Goebbels instructed the German press to call out what he called the hypocrisy of the West, taking no action to admit more Jews despite their criticism of Germany in Kristallnacht. And yes, the American Jewish community largely took a low-key approach to pressuring President Roosevelt, concerned about the prevailing anti-Semitism at the time. We now know that even with the rigid immigration quotas of the 1920s, meant to keep out Eastern and Southern European Jews, Italians, and others, that from 1933 to 1945, even with those very low quotas, 1 million visas were unused. 1 million, which could have been used to save Jews in the United States. But the passivity of the Roosevelt administration and the active effort led by Assistant Secretary of State Breckinridge Long kept as many Jewish refugees out of the U.S. as possible. Even after Kristallnacht, while 80% of Americans opposed the Nazi treatment of Jews, according to the Gallup poll, the same 80% wanted to keep Jews out. FDR did not want World War II to be seen as a war for the Jews of Europe. I served as Deputy Secretary of the Treasury during the Clinton administration. And one of the most remarkable documents of the era was prepared in 1944 by the Treasury Department's staff and handed to the Secretary of the Treasury, this is FDR's own Secretary of the Treasury, Henry Morgenthau Jr. And here's the title that the staff gave when they handed him the report. And I quote, "The acquiescence of this administration in the genocide of the Jews." He forced FDR to create, with this report, the War Refugee Board, which he chaired, and which, working with Raoul Wallenberg toward the end of the war, saved hundreds of thousands of Jews, particularly from Hungary. Just think if that had been set up earlier. The Holocaust was not only the greatest genocide in world history, it was also the greatest theft of Jewish property in history. This was not random. It was not random looting. It was embedded into and done with the same efficiency as the Holocaust itself to eliminate all vestiges of Jewish life in Europe, root and branch, homes and businesses, bank accounts and insurance policies, personal possessions like these beautiful violins that we heard today, and including 600,000 works of art. 600,000 works of art. And I've been working tirelessly, having negotiated what was called the Washington Principles on confiscated Nazi art to get them back. Millions of books, cultural and religious objects. And they also worked slave laborers to death to help run the German war effort. And yes, large numbers of ordinary Germans purchased Jewish assets on the cheap, from pots and pans to costly rugs and furnishings. A significant percent of the German war effort was financed out of looted Jewish assets, included gold hidden into bullion to make them look as if they were regular bullion. In fact, they were taken from fillings and from gold stolen from Jews. So where are we today? We're at a perilous moment in Jewish history. In 2026, the second largest party of the Federal Republic of Germany, which I have to say has done so much to remember Jews and with whom I negotiate every year, but the second largest party of the Federal Republic of Germany today is the anti-Semitic Alternative for Germany. And we will have an election very shortly of 2 Länder or states in which they may for the first time be a majority of the local government. At the very time that the 200,000 Holocaust survivors around the world, the eyewitnesses, are leaving us at the rate of 6% a year, a survey of the US and of half a dozen European countries found a shocking lack of knowledge of the Holocaust. Almost half of Americans cannot name a single concentration camp. And almost 60% of Generation Z and millennials, our youngest citizens, can't identify Auschwitz. This ignorance is compounded by Holocaust denial, distortion, misappropriation, rampant on social media. Our young people get all of their news not from newspapers, not from magazines, not from television, but from TikTok. And just listen to TikTok once in a while, and you'll see the vile anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial. Israel's response to the brutal October 7 Hamas attacks led South Africa to bring a case in the International Court of Justice accusing Israel of genocide, a charge the court denied. As U.S. Ambassador to the European Union and the Clinton administration, my late wife Fran and I traveled throughout all the EU member states in Europe. And we could always identify where the Jewish institutions were, the synagogues, the community centers, the day schools, even the cemeteries, because they were heavily guarded. And we used to tell each other how fortunate we were to be the citizens of the United States, where we didn't have to worry about that kind of attack. We didn't have to have any special guards. Well, there's not a major Jewish institution today, a day school, a community center, a synagogue that doesn't have armed guards and sometimes even metal detectors. The ADL has registered the most anti-Semitic incidents now since they began tracking them in 1979. Anti-Semitism is coming today from both the far left and the far right. The FBI has reported an increase in hate crimes overall in recent years. But these are FBI figures. The Jewish community faces the highest increase in religiously motivated hate crimes. Almost 70% of religiously motivated crimes are directed at the Jewish community. This has caused an unparalleled fear that we never had before in the American Jewish community. A recent survey indicated that up to 50% of American Jews report that they don't wear anything now that could identify themselves as Jewish. The anti-Semitism from the far left and from pro-Palestinians, and including professors, is newer to the scene and is most manifest on college campuses, which in some cases have been virtual battlegrounds, and sow fear in the hearts of American Jewish students. A quarter of Jewish college students today say they feel uncomfortable or unsafe at campus events. And a quarter report hiding their Jewish identity or refraining from speaking about Israel on campus. Now, legitimate criticism of Israeli policy is not anti-Semitism. Israel is a sovereign state. That's what Jews fought for. And like the United States and other nations, they can be fairly criticized for their policies. But these attacks on campus and elsewhere go far beyond that and seek the dismemberment of the Jewish state. The American Jewish Committee survey recently found large majorities of Americans feel that anti-Semitism is a very serious problem, and indeed, interestingly and positively, over 80% of the American general public believes that anti-Semitism in the United States is a major problem. Nearly 2/3 of American Jews say their status is less secure today than it was 5 years ago. And again, social media amplifies this. Almost 2/3 of American Jews reported seeing or hearing anti-Semitism online. So where do we go from here? What's the future? On this moving Yom HaShoah, we must look forward and ask, how do we rectify this? How do we best honor the memory of the 6 million men, women, and children who were murdered? How do we best honor the survivors that we have here today, among the 200,000 surviving worldwide? Number one, we have to do more to see to it that the dwindling number of survivors live out their last years with a dignity denied them as children. 80% of Holocaust survivors in the former Soviet Union and in Central and Eastern Europe live in or near poverty. 35% do in the Jewish state of Israel, and 30% do in the richest country in the history of the world, the United States. This is absolutely unacceptable. Since 2009, I've been the special pro bono negotiator for the Jewish Claims Conference in our annual negotiations with Germany. We've obtained some $10 billion since then for survivors. The fiscal year 2026 budget is $1.5 billion. Half goes for home care workers to keep survivors out of old age homes, which don't even exist in large parts of Eastern Europe and the former Soviet Union. And the rest go for monthly pensions and supplemental payments to the poorest of the poor. And yet, with all of that, these poverty figures still confront us. Next, we have to take both defensive and offensive steps to deal with anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial, distortion, and ignorance. On the defensive side, ADL is providing a helpline for Jewish students experiencing anti-Semitism. And they have gotten more than 100 companies to sign a workplace pledge to fight anti-Semitism. Campus administrators are now reacting with more alacrity to anti-Semitic actions on campus than they did only 3 or 4 years ago. The Jewish Federations of North America have created a program called Live Secure in partnership with the Secure Community Network and our own United States Department of Homeland Security, creating a system of safety and security, including training. And if we didn't have that training, by the way, we would have had in Detroit the most massive destruction. There would have been 140 kids killed when that truck went right through and was going to self-ignite. The Department of Homeland Security, through Congress, has provided funding of over $300 million per year to more than 2,200 faith-based and other nonprofit organizations, particularly the Jewish community. This provides an ability to harden Jewish and other religious targets from attack. In May of 2023, the Biden administration, which appointed me to head the Holocaust Memorial Council that I helped create under President Carter, published the first U.S. national strategy to counter anti-Semitism, which I was pleased to help with, in which every single federal agency pledged to take steps to deal with it. But above all, there are 3 things that we can do to combat anti-Semitism and Holocaust ignorance: education, education, and education. They are the key to combat anti-Semitism and will have the most lasting effect at a time when survivors are leaving us. We must make it clear to future generations what can happen when anti-Semitism and hatred of any kind goes unchecked. It doesn't just affect Jews, it affects everyone. It erodes democracy, it erodes the rule of law, it erodes what this nation stands for. We have to fight all forms of discrimination. Black, brown, Muslims, gays, and other minorities. And each of us should make an individual decision to fight discrimination of any kind. At the Holocaust Memorial Museum, with Gary's help as well, Dr. Zola, we've embarked on an effort to combat anti-Semitism and Holocaust distortion on social media. We have found that 13 to 17-year-olds get almost all their news or information unvetted on social media. And we are now on social media. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram. We're combating false statements. We've done videos, 60-second videos, because that's about the attention span of these kids. 60-second videos of about 20 survivors who are docents at our museum, talking about what their teenage years were like, with pictures of them, so we try to relate to these kids. There have been 50 million visitors since the Holocaust Museum opened in 1993. Over 90% non-Jewish. And I have to say, as I was being taken through by your leadership and by Elizabeth, I really marveled at what I see at the Holocaust Museum in Washington. The variety of people coming through and the attention with which they spend. The average stay at a Smithsonian Museum on the Mall is an hour. The average stay at our museum is 2 hours and 7 minutes, and I was told by Elizabeth that for people oftentimes take over 2 hours to go through your Auschwitz exhibit. But we're not satisfied with having 50 million visitors. Everyone can't come to Washington. So we're now embarking on what we call Beyond Our Walls, and we're taking the museum to people. We signed an agreement with the American Library Association, and we now have Holocaust exhibits in libraries in over 100 towns and cities, many without hardly any Jews. And we encourage teachers to have their students visit those libraries. We received a $10 million 5-year appropriation from Congress called the Never Again Holocaust Education Act to promote Holocaust education. And we have an extensive outreach program to teachers around the country. This past summer, we had over 3,000 taking special curriculum studies in the Holocaust. In addition, we have regular tours, not just for a day, not just for an hour, but for several days, with senior military officials from the Army, with midshipmen and people from West Point, with new FBI agents, and with the Washington, D.C. police. And I heard one major, just offhandedly, say, I wish I'd had this course when I was in Iraq in terms of how to deal with non-combatants. And we're going international as well. When I was Deputy Secretary of the Treasury and also Special Advisor to President Clinton and Secretary of State Albright on Holocaust issues, I worked with the Swedish Prime Minister in January of 2000 to create a Holocaust International Task Force with about a half a dozen countries. Well, that's now morphed into the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance with 35 countries to promote Holocaust education worldwide. We're not doing enough in the United States to show leadership. Only about half of our states have any mandated Holocaust education in their curriculum. But again, the good news is that teachers want this. They want to teach it. And if they're given the opportunity, they will do so. Let me close in this way. The most timeless lesson for us today and for generations to follow in the future are to help people understand how the Holocaust happened and why. We're going to close our museum for almost 2 years, starting in 2027, to redo our entire permanent exhibit, to focus not just on what happened, but to focus people's attention on why it happened and what the contemporary lessons are today. The unchecked anti-Semitism and hatred, the power of propaganda, and importantly, the possibilities for choice. We're going to put the exhibit that's now buried at the end of those who were rescuers. You call them here upstanders. So people, when they first come in, realize that there were choices to be made. And many people, not enough, but many made the right choice. Now, I am optimistic. We have a difficult situation and we can't be naive about it. But we have the tools and the commitment that didn't exist in the past to combat anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, and Holocaust denial. But here's the reason why I'm absolutely confident we'll succeed. And that is the following. The empires which sought to destroy us over thousands of years, the Babylonians, the Romans, the Crusaders, the Tsars, the Nazis, the Soviet Union, are all in the dustbin of history. But as shown so movingly in this ceremony today, especially by our young people, we're here and we will be forever. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Nancy Frank, and I am proud to serve as board chair of the Nancy and David Wolf Holocaust and Humanities Center. On behalf of all of us, I would like to extend our sincere gratitude to Ambassador Eisenstadt for sharing his insight, his leadership, and his lifelong commitment to justice and remembrance. We are deeply honored by your presence with us tonight. I would also like to thank our partners who made this evening and this broader effort possible, including the Meyerson JCC, Jewish Family Services, and Cincinnati Museum Center. Your collaboration and commitment have helped bring meaningful remembrance and education to our community. As we conclude this program, we invite you to continue the evening with us in the Losanaville dining room for the closing reception of Auschwitz, not long ago, not far away. There will be drinks and light bites, along with a brief and reflective panel discussion on our community's involvement in bringing this exhibition to Cincinnati. We hope you will take this time to gather, to reflect, and to engage in conversation with one another. Thank you for being here tonight and for being part of this shared act of remembrance.